What's going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning to another episode of Right on Cue Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Logan Chestnut, and joining me tonight is my guest and teacher, Mr. Matt Hansen of Crooked Pigs Barbecue. What's up, buddy?
How's it going?
Oh, man, I'm trying to breathe. No,
having one of those weeks.
It's been a month. No, man, it's going good. You've been watching basketball?
You know what? This is the first year in a lot of years I didn't do a bracket. I don't have any skin in the game, so I'm kind of not really watching. I've been hearing some stuff, but man, no, not this year.
It's been a good tournament, man. My Kentucky Wildcats, we're playing with like house money at this point. I said at the beginning of the year, I said if we can just make the damn tournament and beat Louisville and beat Duke, then that's just a hugely successful season for Mark Pope in his first season. And we've done all that. We're in the Sweet 16, so house money at this point. And we're playing Tennessee. I want to beat them 3 times in a row so bad because, from Kentucky, live in Tennessee, it's miserable if you lose to them. So
yeah, I imagine.
It's bad. But West Coast, I mean, y'all aren't huge. Y'all are more football.
We've had Boise State in the dance the past couple seasons, but can't get ourselves out of the first round, and then we didn't win
neither could Kentucky. I mean, even with all that NBA talent we had, and then apparently, he goes to a different school, and now apparently he can coach. Who knows? I don't know. It's whatever. It's like your ex getting skinny after the breakup. You don't want to see that.
It always happens, though.
It always
every
happens
time
that way. Absolutely. But no, man. Thank you so much for coming on tonight. This whole month we've been doing protein tell-alls. So we did chicken, ribs, pork, and now we're on the brisket. And like I said, when it comes to brisket, like I said, I know you're the man. I've seen pictures. A lot of awards won. So I truly appreciate you coming on and sharing your secrets with everybody. And I am excited to learn, man. As a backyard guy, we don't dabble in the beef very much. I love doing briskets, and I wish, there was more of that in the backyard scene. But so I'm very, very, very. This is the least knowledge I have on any protein, so I'm very excited about talking to you tonight.
Well, I'm happy to share everything I do. I don't know that. There's so many guys out there who can cook these days that it's. To have it, you're only as good as your last cook, and just hard to stay up with the game. But I've had some success on brisket. It's been generally my best category for the last 5 years, and so I'm happy to share what I've learned and hope I can help some folks.
So let's talk about brisket for a little bit, man. Like starting off, was that one of the most challenging proteins for you to learn? Or was it one that you just kind of like, because it's not, let's just get it out the way. It's not a cheap protein. It is, a very expensive, it's probably 50% of your, meat cost at any comp is going to be your brisket. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, man, it was a lot cheaper when I started for sure. I was buying Snake Rivers for $99. And so that's what they cost to order them online. And so it was a lot cheaper. For sure. But I don't know. It was still really hard to learn. It's one of the least forgiving, I think, meats. Even when, pork shoulder's bad, it's still pretty good, but that's just not the case with brisket. It took a while, especially considering we started cooking on pellet cookers originally. And so I think it's been an evolution, and getting over live fire has definitely improved it. But I don't know. I think there were things we learned from cooking on pellet grills, and some things I still use. But it's been a long ride, and it's taken a lot to get to where I feel like we can show up to a comp and be in the mix no matter where we go.
Absolutely. So remind me again on what you're cooking on. Are you a cooker, or you got a offset, or what are you cooking on again?
We're cooking on cans right now. And I take a pellet cooker with us. I usually use it as a holding oven, but I'm experimenting a little. I've got some ideas for this coming season that are the current season that I'm working in there, using that pellet grill a little more.
I do the hybrid cooking like we talked last time, the can, and then move it over to the pellet for my cooks. And I love it. I mean, like I said, it definitely keeps a more consistent temperature. You don't have to fight it so much. Takes one less thing out of what you got to worry about, and especially in the 4-meat comp, you got always juggling something.
What I'm working on is kind of backwards. I think I'm going to start on the pellets and move to the can. And the philosophy I have on it right now is I don't know. I struggle a little bit sometimes getting the bark set just the way I want it before it's gone a little too far. It needs to get wrapped before that bark's set with my ribs and my brisket. And so I find that if I can start it a little lower on a pellet grill, this is what I do in my backyard a lot of times. And it's been working out. So I'm going to try it at some comps perhaps this year. I haven't run it at a comp yet. I've been cooking just straight on the can, and it always seems to work pretty well. But I have noticed that once in a while, I feel like that that I'll have to take it a little darker than I want it to get that bark set the way I want it. And so I think the pellet grill solves a little bit of that, and you still get all that can flavor, just a little less time over the flame.
Right. Well, I mean, essentially doing the same thing I am. It's just in reverse. So that little charcoal kiss, I think, definitely gives you a leg up on any competition.
Yeah.
So let's get going, man. Let's start kind of work through your whole process.
Okay.
And start off. So let's start off early in the week. So you got to come on Saturday. What day are we getting stuff ready? Like, are we trimming on a certain day, or how are you getting ready?
Well, so I cook Snake River briskets. Right now I'll get there. Not really. Gold if I got to order one, but I can usually get them locally in a grocery store here. And I only cook flats right now. I'm only doing slices, so I'm not cooking burnt ends. Although I have been kind of maybe moving back towards that. Been working on it at home, but I haven't turned any in several years. But I can get just a Snake River flat. And so it's ungraded. It's not a black or a gold. And if I can pick through several cases, I can usually get something that strikes my fancy. That's got enough marbling that I feel like I can cook that and not have to order one. If I don't have one that's marbled, I'll order one in. But whether I'm buying one fresh at the store or I'm ordering one in, as soon as I get that thing, I'm trimming it up and vacuum sealing it down. So I'll take it frozen to a comp. I'll stick it in my trailer fridge frozen and let it defrost on the way there. Because living in Boise, Idaho, I don't got anything within 8 hours. Generally, there's one comp that's 5.5 hours away. That's as close as I got this year. Although after the jack cutoff, we do have one that's here in Boise this year. So that'll be good. It's been a few years since we've had one local, but that's in August.
For that.
Yeah, you gotta come. It's gonna be a good time. So anyhow, so I'll stick it frozen in the trailer fridge, and usually in 2 days' time, it's defrosted where I want it. Once in a while, I might have to set it on the counter for a half hour or something to get it ready to inject. But most of the time, I just throw it in the fridge.
I got you. So I mean, as people saw on the post I posted about tonight's episode, I mean, you get some honkers, man. Is that one you got? That picture you sent me, the what was it, 32 pounds?
That wasn't a flat. That was a whole brisket. I got that.
That's a packer, but still, that's a monster. No matter how you cut it up.
Yeah, it was a big brisket. 32 or almost 33 pounds, I think. I got that at Snyder Brothers Meats in Salt Lake when I was down there. My brother lives down there, and we're on the team together. And so when I'm down there visiting or we're down there for a comp, I'll swing by Snyder Brothers and see what they've got in stock. And they happen to have that there. And I couldn't miss out on the almost 33 pound gold. So
hell no, man. That's insane. Well, your brother lives in you said Salt Lake?
Yeah, Salt Lake area. Yeah.
I got you.
Eagle Mountain, Utah.
I got you, man. Well, you tell him to go check out Rusty's new brick and mortar he got set up now.
I've been hearing about that. I haven't been, and next time I'm down there, I'm going to be down there cooking a comp in June, and so I'm going to check it out then. So
yeah, definitely. I got to make my way out there and so show him some support. But we're excited. So if you're in Utah area, make sure you check out Salt City Barbecue.
Do it.
Awesome. So back to you, man. So we got that. We're gonna trim it out. So I got a picture. So you say you just cooked the flat, right? And are you going, like, so are you cutting to a certain weight you like, or a certain shape, or like what are we looking for? Like when we're picking out a brisket, I mean, obviously you're not picking out, but well, you are picking out a brisket, but most people when we order, they're going to order from Snake River Farms or the butcher shop in Pensacola, A9s, and then also Mr. Brisket is selling a brisket that I can't say the name right now. I can't think of the name. So
I can't remember what that is either off the top of my head, but boy, I've seen some of his. They're mean, man. They're mean looking briskets.
He's got fantastic, and I mean everybody says swears by the A9s. What kind of made you go to Snake Rivers, or have you cooked both, and like which one's kind of your preference?
I have cooked a few A9s. I do think, like you hear a lot, occasionally they're a little gamey. I do think that having them handpicked, sometimes you get a little more marbled product. But man, I've cooked Snake River since the start. I've tried to bounce around a little, and I just think that I can consistently get a more consistent product when I'm cooking Snake Rivers. They're just, I mean, maybe the highs aren't quite as high, but sometimes you can get a real marbled one coming out of Florida or whatever. But they're just always solid when I'm ordering the Snake Rivers, and I can get them locally, so I can buy a flat and I can just cook those. I mean, when I buy a flat in town, I'll get one and it'll cost me like $80. So I can cook those regularly, and I can just know what to expect, and I can dig through a lot of them, and it just, for me, it's the way to go.
I got you. We have a first question of the night, and it's a good one. I've gotten a lot, especially from newer cooks. So someone who has a TNS barbecue competition team wrote, as someone who's never cooked a Wagyu, in your opinion, could someone at least be competitive cooking a prime if that's all they know?
I think it depends on where you're cooking and what kind of prime you're cooking. I mean, if you just throw me any old prime, probably not. If I could dig through several cases of primes and find one that's stand out for marbling, I think probably. I don't think you'd have any trouble cooking a prime point for burn ends, but I think that flat oftentimes is just not quite as marbled as I'd like it out of a prime. Of course, there's creek stones and some places where you can get some real nice primes, and I think you could do that, but I think you'd have to be pretty selective. I don't think you could just roll into Sam's Club and pick up whatever prime they happen to have and expect to do all that well, although you will from time to time. But I think that it is a step above for sure.
Sure. I mean, like you said, you can cook a fantastic prime brisket, and I'm sure people have one. I know of someone who has one. Yep. So we're not saying it can't be done by any means, and like I said, if you're starting off, I mean, cooking a prime, starting off like learning them, primes are definitely a solid choice to kind of, get into the brisket before you get into the Wagyu. I mean, they cook differently, obviously, but if you're just getting into it, a prime's an excellent starting point, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I wouldn't be buying $300 pieces of meat and ruining them if you don't know what you're doing with them. I mean, it's not going to make the difference between, if you can't maybe, crack the top 10 with a prime, then I don't think you have any business really wasting your money. But if you're for sure. Yep.
Absolutely. Tell the people kind of, that's another question I wanted to ask you. The cooks on a prime versus a Wagyu, what would you say the differences would be?
Well, I think you got to take a Wagyu oftentimes. Well, I think the Wagyu cooks a little faster, and I think that you got to take it a little higher in temp. I mean, obviously, every piece of meat varies, and it depends on how you're cooking it. If you're cooking hot and fast directly over the heat, or if you're cooking on a stick burner or what have you, I think things vary. But I don't often look at temp when I'm cooking a brisket. It's generally all feel. I mean, I'm using a thermopen, and it's kind of giving me an idea of how close I'm getting, and how much attention I need to pay into it. If it's over 200 degrees, I mean, it's time to be paying attention. And so I'm checking it pretty often when I'm over 200 degrees. But that's about the only thing that matters to me when I'm looking at that temp on the thermopen is just to know how much attention to pay. Once it's over 200, it's all by feel. And so And I noticed that some Wagyus cook slower than others, some cook faster than others. It depends on how thick it is and how heavy it is. And you did ask me how I like to trim those and size and whatnot. So the most important thing for me is marbling. You're looking at a point here on a Wagyu piece and a flat behind that. It just
kind of trimmed.
Yeah, it just it doesn't matter to me so much the size. If I've got a nice marble piece of meat, that's the most important thing. And the next most important thing is thickness. Although I'll tell you that if it's real thin and real marble, I'm probably going to pass on it. It's going to have to be good and thick. So I want thick and I want marble. Those are the most important things. And sometimes, I'll order in a 14 to 16 pounder from Snake River, and it'll be real thick. Other times it'll be, thinner. And I'll pick up, a smaller flat at the grocery store, and it'll be real thick. And then I'll pick up a big old giant one, and it's just big, long, and thin. And so thickness matters to me, obviously, because you want a nice, tall slice in your box. It's just more impressive than a little thin piece of meatloaf. So I'm looking for that. But I am really looking for marbling. That's why you're buying the Wagyu meat. That's the only reason you're buying Prime over Choice. It's the only reason you're buying Choice over Select. It's the reason you're spending that high dollar money is for the marbling. And so that's what I'm looking for first and foremost, because that's where your moisture and your texture is better. It's where it comes from. So that's what I'm looking for.
Absolutely. All right. So like I said, this is let's talk about your trim. So when you're trimming your brisket, are you another guest asked a good question I was going to ask you. Do you use like a brisket caddy, or do you have like a certain device to kind of help you get the dimensions? Are you cutting to like a box slice size, or are you just cutting it to a certain size and then you're trimming down once you are further along in the cook?
I'm trimming, well, again, it varies a little based on the size of the brisket that I've got. So I'm not afraid to use something that's a little narrower than I'd like because of the box constraints. If it's a nice brisket and I'm confident in the marbling, I'll use it, even if it's a little too narrow. And I think you'll notice that looking at some of my turn-in box pictures that sometimes I'm a little narrower, sometimes I'm a little closer to the edge. For the most part, I use my 7-inch Forstner boning knife as a guide. And usually that's about how wide I want that brisket. I'm not using a brisket caddy. I have used them. I don't know. I just feel better without them. I think that the appearance is a little more natural. I think the cook's a little bit better. I mean, I maybe for trimming, I don't mind. I don't cook in them, but I just use that boning knife as my guide for the width across. If it's the width of that knife, it's usually about perfect. And sometimes they shrink a little and whatnot, but I think that's a pretty good place to be.
I got you. Well, good deal. So, like you said, we're picking it out, and briskets like ribs. You want the thicker ones. You want to have a nice, marbling on there. It's a certain like color you're looking for, or just that bright red kind of, or like this one's definitely, looking pretty like a lot darker red. I think the one that I picked this other trim picture up from my buddy Brian Dwyer from
you did
Barbecue Bus. Like I said, that one's a little, I think that's an A9. So I mean, look at the color difference between that and this is a Snake River. Does that come into play? So like it's kind of, it does definitely when we come to ribs. So brisket, does that come? Well, I mean, honestly, a lot of people just order their brisket and what they get's what they get.
Right.
So I guess that's less so than any other.
I've noticed that sometimes I can't figure out what the variables are necessarily, but sometimes when I'll crack that cryo open and it starts to oxidize real fast, and other times it doesn't. I'm not afraid if it starts to darken up a little bit to cook it. But obviously I do like to see a bright pink piece of meat. But if it's turning a little darker, I'm fine to cook it.
I got you. All right, so we're at a contest now. At what point are you going to inject, or do you inject, and do you brine, or do you just inject, or what's kind of your method on that? Kind of what time do you do it at a comp?
I'm shooting to inject around 6 or 7 p.m. the night before, and I do inject, and I like to pump them about as full of injection as I can.
Do you feel like
Currently,
you can over inject?
man, I don't think I ever have. I do think though that if you put too much injection in it, I think you can get it too salty. And so if you've got a ton of injection in it, you got to watch how much rub you're putting on it because it can get a little too salty. I don't think I've ever noticed that there's a texture problem or injection pockets or anything like that when I'm cooking a hot and fast brisket. So I don't think you can really over inject them, other than to say that you can get them too salty if there's too much injection and too much rub in combination. And so you gotta be careful not to over salt them.
All right. So we're talking injection. Do you pre-make your injections before you go to the comp? Or are you making them on site? And what injections, if you don't mind sharing with the audience, that you're using?
So I do pre-make my injection. I bring it all in bottles. I'm using an alkaline water. I just buy the stuff from Costco, the Costco alkaline waters. And I'm making a whole 32 ounces of injection for one brisket flat. And I'm usually mixing 2 injections, and currently I'm mixing the Cosmos injection with Tim's Blues Hog injection, 50-50.
Okay. 50-50.
And the reason I like to mix at least 2 injections is because I just feel like it's less likely you're going to get that off flavor. The Cosmos injection is just loaded full of phosphates and hydrolyzed soy protein and things like this that I think you can taste. I think that his injections really give you a good texture, but I think that you can kind of pick them up if it's a little too heavy. And so I like to cut that with something else. I've gone back and forth between Tim's Blues Hog product and the Big Papa Smokers product, Cattle Prod product.
Cattle Prod's fantastic.
Yeah.
Another one, like I said, I've used personally is the Beef Show. Like I said, another bus plug there, but no, the Beef Show is a great one. There's a lot of great ones on the market.
I'm gonna have to give Brian's injection a shot. I haven't done it yet. I know there's a number that have been hitting the market, and I'd like to give them a go. And so probably gonna have to have a big test cook where I do a lot of head-to-heads on some of the new products out there, and see what we've got. So the one other thing. Go ahead.
I'll say you can't beat the label. I mean, it's one of the best labels on the market.
Right. I mean, anything with a stripper pole. Well, the one other thing I add to my injection is I do put some more phosphates. I use the Cosmos Moisture Magic stuff.
Are you doing any beef consomme or beef broth?
Yeah, I do that as well. It's really just a water. I do straight water, and then I add a couple squirts of liquid beef stock. It's the Knorr product they sell at the restaurant supply store in a 32-ounce squeeze bottle.
I got you.
Knorr Ultimate Beef.
So you don't add any phosphates to your brisket rub? You use the phosphates that's already in the injections, or
no? I add the Moisture Magic too.
Moisture Magic. Okay. Yeah.
So in 32 ounces, I'm doing 2 tablespoons of Moisture Magic addition.
Okay. Yeah, I use Moisture Magic as well. It's pretty. It's been the one that's been around the longest. It's been consistent. So I'm like, I think they're all the same. Honestly, I can't tell too big of a difference between any of them. So phosphates are phosphates. All right. So we're pumping them up. Are we rubbing the night before, or do we just once we inject it, we let it in the pan, in the cooler overnight, or what are we doing?
Well, first of all, I'll say I inject them with a repeater gun, the cattle repeaters with the hose. Yeah, it goes in my bottle. I stick the bottle fits down in my drain in my sink, and it sits perfect. And then I just have them in the pan, and I load them up real fast. It's a great way to inject. So I do that the night before, and I do put a little rub on, not a lot. And really, I really use 3 basic types of rub. I'll tell you what I'm using right now, but it sometimes varies depending on what I'm feeling or how my profile's doing. But I really think there's 3 different types of brisket rubs from my perspective. You've got a white rub, you've got an umami rub, and you got a red rub. And so I'm doing right now. I'm doing Blanco, which is what's his name?
Church.
No, Rio Valley. Blanco.
Oh well, he got it. Fred Robles.
Yeah, Fred's Blanco.
He knows brisket. He's all right in brisket.
Yeah, I mean, those Texas guys are hard to beat anywhere you go. But I mean, Fred cleans house about anywhere he goes.
He's all right.
I love that rub, man. I've got that next to my stove at home, and I put that on eggs and anything. I mean, anything I cook, man. Just about any stocks I'm making, any meat I cook, it's got Blanco on it. I think it's such a solid.
It's really good rub. Really
multi-purpose rub. Yep. But there's several good white rubs out there. You could do. I mean, there's like Boris Night Out, White Lightning. There's there's a ton of different white rubs.
Rawhide.
Yeah, LC stuff. Anything LC. I've got to start cooking with more LC stuff. I've been out cooking with him this past year. I've got to try some more of his injections and stuff. I've got that as a goal for this year to really to go through his whole product line. So I'm going to do it. But so I use that for a white rub. The two umami style rubs that I like to use, and I go back and forth between are why am I'm drawing a blank here? Tim's Blues Hog, Bold and Beefy, or the Big Papa Smokers. I was going to say cattle prod, but that's his injection.
Yeah, the Big Papa Smokers beef rub.
Yeah, what is this? I'll tell you. Sorry, I can't remember.
So
I'm Googling it.
Yeah, so that's technically it's going to be just like all around beef rub, all purpose beef like rub.
Cash cow.
Cash cow. There you go. Yeah, cash cow. There, have you ever tried the umami rub that's come out?
I have not.
I really like that. Of course, I mean that adds more shiitake mushroom, or it's just more. It's a mushroomy flavor, but I think that goes really well with beef.
It's super umami for sure.
Yeah. So I love Bold and Beefy. I love you said Bold and Beefy. Like that's one of my favorite beef rubs of all time. I mean, it's one of those rubs I can just kind of pinch and just eat.
For sure.
So I mean, anything Tim does is fantastic. And
it is.
Cash cow. I've had that as well. It's also a really, really great rub as well. And then you got to add a rub for color. So what color? We're moving on to your red rub, as you say.
Well, and this one I move around on a little more than others. It just depends on kind of what I'm feeling. But what I've used most consistently is the Eat Most Powerful stuff.
Oh,
but I also do Cow Cover Hot from Cosmos. I've also used some of the black label rub.
Heavy Smoked Black.
Heavy Smoked Black Label.
Yeah, Chris has I love that one as well.
Yep, that's a great rub too.
I mean, they got a ton of. I was trying to think. I was looking at I got a little barbecue closet on the other side of my computer here. I was kind of looking and saying, well, what else is good? But no, I mean, all those that you've listed about or have we talked about. I mean, they're all fantastic. And so basically, what you're doing, it's essentially what you do for every protein. You're going to the base layer of an AP rub, kind of your salt, pepper, garlic kind of rubs, and then you're going to add your beefy kind of rubs, like any kind of like cow beef rub, and then add I guess more of a sweetness and then more for color.
It caramelizes a little too, I think.
Yeah, little sugars and caramelizes. I mean, that's what any proteins you're gonna. I mean, you need to layer your flavors, and then they all need to kind of balance together. I mean, that's just competition cooking. I
never mix them. I like to be able to meter how much of each. And I know a lot of people do mix them. I think most people don't, but I always want to be able to hands-on my mixture each time and layer it on the way I
like that as well. Only one I do mix is chicken, but I mean that's just because I want more of an even layer on that. But everything else, I'm with you. I'll layer the rest of it. All right, so we're rubbing. I think I have a picture of you. Let's talk about your layering. So I mean, brisket's a big piece of beef, and this is also a good picture of kind of how you cut. So you see kind of around the edges. Are you like kind of making it aerodynamic, make sure there's no real points when you're on your trim job?
Yeah, I mean, you could really cut off some of that not straight edge there, but I leave that. It just gives me a little more tester meat when the brisket's not as big as I'd like it or as long as I like it. But I'll round all the corners. I don't want anything 90 degrees, not because I really care so much about when I'm cooking on a can about aerodynamics or whatever, but just because I think those points have a tendency to burn and over caramelize, and then that's going to make things a little bitter and get done before you want it to. I want to try to make it cook as evenly as possible so that I don't have any so the whole thing's done before I've got any of it burning. And so that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm coming in there with scissors and cutting my edges, all my straight edges once I get it roughly chopped so that it's all rounded and so that there's just no right angles. I want it to be I think yeah.
If you leave like a sharp point, then you run into the risk of crumbling and all that. So by doing more aerodynamic, it definitely, like I said, allows for a prettier or a nicer cook. You don't have to worry so much. And does that play into any effect about kind of the brisket kind of mushrooming throughout the cooking process?
I mean, by mushrooming, you just mean plumping
plumping up. But kind of sometimes I've seen them. I've had maybe before where it kind of like does that the McDonald's arches. Arches up a little bit.
And it looks like a meat mustache in the box.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's hard because I really think the problem that's happening there is, for the most part, your fat cap is a little thicker in the middle than it is on the edges. And so then when you get underneath that thing and you trim that fat cap off, I think that you end up with a little more meat, a little more meat on the edges. It's because you've had to take more out from that middle to get all that out of there. And, you're wanting to reserve as much as you can. And I think that's part of why that happens. I don't know. I think it's tough sometimes. I think just some pieces of meat are going to do that. And I think you can correct a lot of that on the board. I have had that happen a number of times. And I think you just have to, ideally you've got a thick enough piece of meat that you can just take your bottom off and make it flat again.
I got you.
But
all right. That's fair enough. So, all right. So this right here, is this your, because you rub a little bit before. So what are you putting on the night before? And then what are you doing the next day?
I'm just putting a little bit of my salt, pepper, garlic, my Blanco, my all-purpose rub on the night before. Okay. Just a light coat, just a very, very light dusting. And I'm letting it sit in my pan with the injection. Now, it's not covering it. It's not enough to do that. It's not even enough to really go up the side. It's probably just fat cap level, but I'm just injecting it in the pan and leaving it in there and throwing it in my fridge.
Awesome. All right. So let's move on to the next day of. What time will we waking up and light fires?
Well, it depends on what sanctioning body I'm cooking. I think for the most part, I'm cooking KCBS anymore, although we did cook a lot of PNWBAs out here because there's some big money in the PNWBA. But for the most part, I'm up about 4 a.m. and maybe 4:30, but I don't know. You talk to my brother, he hassles me because I'm harder to get out of bed in the morning than he is, and so he's ended up having to rope me out of there. But I'd like to be dressed and ready to go and get my meats out on the board by 5 a.m. And so then I'll start first with brisket. That's the first thing I'm going to go to. And I'm just going to get it out of that injection. I'm going to get it on a cutting board, and I'm going to get it rubbed down and try to let it sit for half an hour or so with that rub on it until it starts to, like in the picture here, it starts to, sweat a little and look like it's ready to go on the grill.
Hell, it's got a great color as it is, man. I mean, let's just cut that thing up. Eat it mid-rare.
I just don't want it. I don't want any dry spots on it when I'm putting it on there because that liquid's going to pull in the smoke. So that's what I'm waiting for.
Awesome, man. Awesome. All right. So we got that. You got the fires lit. I mean, we're going straight up and down at 300, or where are we cooking at? Where we start off at?
Straight up and down at 300. I don't cook with a water bath with my brisket. I just cook it straight over the fire. At least until it's time to wrap. I still don't use a water bath. I end up putting my heat deflector back in on my gateway when I wrap. But yeah, I just cook it straight up and down. And I really don't. It varies how long I'm going to leave that on there before I wrap, because I'm not looking for temperature. I'm not looking for much else besides color and whether that bark's set. And really, I'd rather wrap it before the bark set if I have to than take it too far. but I'm really looking for color, and it is nice if that bark is good and set so it survives the wrap.
I got you. All right, so you got the can. Are you putting it in the dead center of the can, or more towards one side, or?
I'm dead center in the brisket flat in the can, and that's all I'm putting on one can. It's just one brisket flat.
Okay. All right. So, are we running wood in there? Are you running wood chunks?
Yeah, I'm obviously running charcoal, and I think charcoal matters a lot. I'm pretty particular about charcoal. For the most part, I go back and forth between a few, but I try to cook on rockwood. But I'll cook on any quality lump. I mean, I'll cook on the Blues Hog stuff. I'll cook on, if it's quality lump, I'll cook on it if I'm in a pinch. But I am particular. I think that there's some bad charcoal out there on the market, and I think there's some much better stuff. And I mean, B&B is nice stuff. There's lots of good stuff out there. But I like rockwood a lot, or Jealous Devil's great. I'll cook on Jealous Devil from Walmart anytime I'm on the road and can't get any charcoal, any rockwood. I'm really happy with Jealous Devil, even though it's Brazilian and it's not American hardwood. I think it's a great charcoal. It does burn a little hotter and cleaner, I think, than some of the hickory oak kind of charcoals, and so I'll usually add a couple more chunks of my smoke wood to the Jealous Devil if I'm using that.
What do you think about this new trend? Like I said, I like the good charcoal. I like the, I don't know if y'all have those out there your way yet, but it's the African wood. I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, it's a lot of I've seen a lot of newer charcoal companies or Arcadian wood maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's what. No, I was going to say maybe that's what a Jealous Devil is, but I don't think so. I think it's a
But I've really liked any good quality charcoal. I mean, you're not going to go wrong there. And you said are you adding wood chunks or are you running straight charcoal?
No, I am adding wood chunks, and I'm typically running pecan.
Pecan wood. I mean, I feel like every Acacia wood. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's the one I was close. Arcadia, not bad.
GMC Acacia wood.
There you go. So you're running some pecan. Well, pecan works on all proteins. It's just
I'll use hickory and oak if I don't have any pecan, but
would cherry be too much, or you don't like cherry wood on beef?
I've done I've thrown a chunk in for color in the past. I don't know that I really noticed that color everybody talks about coming off the cherry wood. I think that's kind of a myth. Maybe I'm just not smart enough to see it, but I don't know. I think maybe it's a little too harsh. I mean, the flavor I noticed way more than I noticed the color, and so I'm happy with some of the more traditional woods. I think if I've got pecan, I'll do it. Otherwise, it's going to be a 50-50 blend of hickory and oak, and I think that those kind of get you about where pecan gets you.
I got you. Good deal. All right, so we got the charcoal rolling and the wood smoking. We're putting it on. At what time are we putting the brisket on?
Well, I'm putting it on as soon as I'm ready to go. As soon as I think that rub's it's sweated enough and it's ready to go on. Because I don't mind holding my brisket. So the sooner I get it done, the better. I mean, quite frankly, I'd rather hold it longer than I do. So if I'm up at 3:30 on a particular, I'll just get started because I don't mind holding that brisket. It's not going to be done too early for me to hold. Almost never. And so I have no problem just getting on as quick as I can.
Okay. So, I mean, if you're lighting the fires at 4:30, I mean, it takes probably 30 minutes to get to temp.
Yep.
So on average, probably safe. Let's say 5. Let's say around 5 o'clock in the morning.
5 o'clock is pretty safe.
Yeah. Yep. So we got the brisket on, and we're letting it ride for a while. What's the first time? Like, are we rotating throughout the cook? Like, how often are we rotating or spritzing?
Yeah. So I start my drum with a chimney starter. I know most guys are throwing a Weber cube or a tumbleweed or whatever in there to fire up their gateways, but I start mine with a chimney because I want a more even fire. So I'm doing a half a Weber chimney on each drum, and then I still rotate. And I maybe do a quarter turn every half hour, 45 minutes, just kind of depends. I just every time I think to do it, I will. And then I don't spritz for any particular reason other than just to even out the rub. And so, some parts will set a little faster than others. And sometimes there'll be a little low spot and it'll pool a little moisture. And so maybe I'll tuck a little piece of smoke wood underneath the flat to try to dome that just right so that can roll out of there. But if you got any spots that are starting to set around the edges and they're getting they're caramelizing a little faster than the rest of it, that's where I'm spritzing generally. And I'm just using spray butter, blue bottle, or I can't believe it's not butter, yellow bottle, or duck fat I've used. Whatever I can get my hands on, I'll just spritz around the edges of that flat or wherever it's looking dark, and I'm just trying to get it to be uniform.
I got you. All right, so we got my computer's lagging on me a little bit. All right, so we're going. Are we flipping the brisket at any time throughout the cook when you're cooking, or what's that looking like?
Yeah, this is a contentious bit of. This is a contentious question for us right now. My brother and I talk about this a lot, and I'm not sure. For a long time, I never flipped it. And I know a lot of the big boys are flipping. Brad's flipping his, Tim's flipping his. And I know a lot of other guys that are flipping theirs. And I'm not convinced it's a better product. I'm just not. And so I've done it. I think sometimes if your bark's not setting and you're in a hurry to get that thing wrapped, you can roll that thing over and get it set. But other times, man, I'll not have my bark set and I'll roll it over and then it's gonna sweat and drip, juices out of the top of that flat. And it's gonna wash the rub off. I'm just not convinced it's a better product flipping. I don't think there's a huge benefit to it, but I know that this is controversial, but for the most part, I've been most successful not flipping my brisket.
That's fair. I mean, like I said, there's many ways to skin a cat. It's just how you get there, Yeah. All right. So at what point throughout the cook, like time estimate, are you kind of starting to check, and when you start seeing, the color may start being there? Man, ballpark.
It's really hard to say because, again, like I said, I don't have any comps anywhere real near home. And so at home, my times are way different than on the road. I spend a lot of time, I do all my test cooks here in Boise, Idaho at elevation, and it's real dry here, but then I cook a lot on the coast and at sea level, and it's really humid. And so things happen a lot faster over there for me. But man, I mean, after an hour, I'm in there pretty frequently, just making sure it's where I want it. I don't run any thermometer probes. I'm just totally visual until that thing gets wrapped. And so once I get to an hour's time, I'm in there and I'm scoping it out. And I can glance at it once and say, that needs another half hour for sure. But other times, you might go, I better look at that in 10 minutes.
Right. So anywhere between an hour and a half, around that time frame, the color should be starting to set in and get where you need to be. Mm-hmm. And that was another good point you brought up, because like you said, you're one of the few guys, especially like on the West Coast, that you're doing elevation. Tell the listeners, we talked about on some of our other guests we've had on here, but tell the listeners like the challenges of cooking in higher elevation versus lower sea level and the humidity levels, what challenges it presents.
Well, I mean, I think humidity, I don't cook in Denver. I mean, I have, but I don't cook comps over in Denver where I'm struggling to get temp out of my brisket. Here in Boise, we're down in Salt Lake and places like that, Reno, the Mountain West here. I don't really struggle too much getting, like, it's not like we're having a hard time getting water to boil, elevation. But the biggest thing I notice, a lot of times you might be pulling your brisket at a lower temperature because it's harder to get it up to that temperature at elevation. But the biggest thing I notice is moving from the mountains down to sea level, where I've got humidity and I've got sea level, and that's cooking way faster, man. That humidity in your air is steaming that protein tender a lot faster than it's going to with dry air. And so you got to be careful and know that especially on a real humid day, you might be at the coast in Washington or Oregon or California, and it might be a fairly dry day, but you might have another day that, it's overcast and you got rain clouds rolling in, and it's really humid. You're getting close to 100% humidity. You got to be real careful. Stuff will cook fast.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, especially on those rainy days, you're cooking in like a storm or something like that. And around us, I mean, I know for a fact I've had a rack of ribs that turbo cooked and was at 190 within 45 minutes.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's when you're like, oh crap.
I remember one year at the Jack, I woke up the morning of the comp, and I mean, I had standing water on my drums, and it didn't rain. It was just condensation, and that was, I mean, I knew everything was going to cook real fast, and then the next time we were out there, it was dry as could be, and so you just have to be ready to. And like I said with the brisket, I don't care, man. As fast as I can get that thing done and get it to Canberra, the better off I am. Yeah. I have no problem if holding that thing for 3 hours.
Sure. I mean, certain proteins, like say ribs, chicken, stuff like that, it definitely plays more of a factor into.
For sure.
But with bigger proteins, you have a little more leeway.
For sure.
All right. So we got it. We got it at temp, or not temp. We got it the color you're looking for. Everything's looking pretty. We're pulling it off, and then kind of tell people what you're doing at this point.
Well, I'm going to wrap it. I'm going to wrap it in aluminum foil. That's my go-to. I know a lot of people are real. Yeah, I'm maybe okay. So you see it in pans here, and that's how I've been cooking my flats for the last couple of years. Now it's not in that pan from the get-go. It's bare on the grill, and I'm moving it to that pan when I start to think the underside is looking a little dark. And again, I said I think I don't necessarily get a better product by rolling them over. So now I'm cooking it with one side facing the heat. And so I may slip my heat deflector in at that point in time. If the bottom side's looking too dark, I'll spritz it first of all with some Blue Bottle spray. Then I'll slide that heat deflector in, and I'll move it to a pan and put a little broth in there just to further insulate the bottom of that while I continue to let the top of my brisket roll. And I think I get a better looking bark on the top of that flat when I don't have the crosshatch that you get from rolling it over on the grill. Kind of messes your bark up a little bit. I mean, it doesn't matter all that much by the time you're slicing it and putting it in the box, but I just like it to look pretty. I'm kind of OCD on the way it looks, so I'll throw it in that pan. So then when I get it where I want it, where I feel like the bark's good and set and it's ready to wrap, I'll pull those pans off, and I'll get my foil ready. I'll do a triple layer of heavy-duty aluminum foil, and I'm going to put some kind of fat in there. Generally, it's butter, but I've been known to use Wagyu tallow, but mostly butter or a combination of both. I don't really notice that I like one better than the other, but mostly I'm just using butter because it's what's available on the road.
So are you doing like a stick or?
Yeah, you probably see me put about. So I cut my butter sticks long ways. So I'm usually getting 4 slices out of one stick. I'll probably put half a stick on the bottom, half a stick on the top, and then I might shake a little more rub on there depending on how it's looking. A little more of one particular rub. I might cut a little piece off and taste it, kind of see where I'm at. If I got a little more room for salt at this point, I'll use a saltier rub. If I'm feeling like the bark's not looking, caramelized enough, I might do a sweeter rub. But I'm usually putting a little bit more rub in there with that. And then I'm going to use some unsalted beef stock. And I like Kitchen Basics unsalted beef stock. It's the only one I'll use. I'm really particular about it. I won't use anything else. I feel like that some of the others just they taste really roast beefy. They taste a lot like vegetable stock. I really am particular about Kitchen Basics unsalted. I order it on Amazon. I have it on a case on auto delivery. It's all I'll use. In fact, if I don't have some, I'm really bummed about how that cook's going to go. That's one thing I'm particular about. Although I will say, I've been experimenting at home with making my own stock. I mean, I've obviously made beef stock lots of times in my life, but I've never taken it on the road. And part of the reason I haven't is because it's really difficult to get things as consistent when you cook at home or when you're making your stock at home. I mean, every time it's different. The amounts of water, the size of the piece of beef you might use to make your stock. But I did make a big batch of stock. I think I've got 16 containers all ready to go. If I got to use it to make soup or something, man, I'll do it. But I'm gonna give it a go this year. I've tried it a couple times at home. I think it's a better product than using commercial stock. But sure. We'll see what the judges think in it, and then I'll have 16 of them. And if it's really hitting, maybe I'll save 3 or 4 of those for special cook, and I'll try to make another batch and see how close I can get it. I do like to control all the variables as best I can, and I feel like that making your own stock at home kind of eliminates the ability to do that to some degree. It's just not ever as consistent as a commercial product's going to be, but I'm trying this year.
It's definitely more flavorful, though. I would assume.
Way more.
Obviously. So is this right here, like when you pulled out of off the smoker, is this like kind of the color you're looking for? Like at what state? This is like right before you wrap, correct?
That's right before I wrap right there. Yep.
Okay. So let me ask you a question. When I've done in the past and some of the, I know some friends with pretty big cooks, and what is your thinking behind wrapping like you do versus doing like a bath? Putting it in the pans, floating it, up halfway. Like what benefits do you have wrapping it versus like doing like a brisket bath?
Yeah, I don't think I made that clear. I do take it out of the pan and three layers of foil, and I make kind of a boat, and then I put 3 more pieces on top, and I crimp it all down real tight so it's all totally submerged.
Like a steamer?
Yeah, and there's not much space in that wrap. So I'll tell you why I do it the way I do it. I don't know why other guys do it the way they do. I just feel like if you've got it in a pan and there's so much of that liquid in there, then it's hard. First of all, I think it dilutes the flavor of your briskets to some degree. Maybe not if you use more rub and a salted beef stock, but I'm using an unsalted one, and so I don't want a ton. Like a box of Kitchen Basics, I think they're 32 ounces. I might only use 8 or 10 ounces out of it to wrap one brisket flat. And that's enough. I mean, that's about all I can get in there by the time I crimp all the way around that foil, wrapping it tight. It's going to start leaking out if I put much more in than that. And I like it to reduce down some while it's cooking so that the finished product I've got is a little thicker than just water, because I want to glaze my brisket with that. And I don't feel like if you're floating your brisket in a pan with, 64 ounces of beef stock that you get, I feel like it's just diluting the flavor of your brisket. Whereas I think the brisket's enhancing the flavor of my wrap liquid when it's not very much liquid. Now you have to be careful with that little amount of liquid. First of all, I run the deflector underneath it while it's wrapped, because I don't want all that to boil off, because if it does, you're going to end up with a brisket sticking to it, and it's going to over caramelize the sugars in there. It's going to stick to your foil. It's going to get bitter. So you got to be careful with direct heat underneath the foil when you've got that little amount of liquid in it. And you've also got to be careful when you're probing it for tenderness, because pretty soon if you get too many holes in that foil, it is going to boil off. You're not going to get your temp where you want it, and you're going to lose too much of that liquid. And so I try to be careful and only probe, at least in the beginning, the same hole. I mean, if I'm not even close, I'm not going to probe it 2 or 3 times anywhere else. I'm going to probe right in the heart of that brisket. If it's tight still, I'm just pulling that probe out, and that's it. And then I'll come back in the same hole until it's time until I know it's tender there, and then I'm going to start checking all over, or at least it's getting close to tender there, because I don't want my edges overcooked. And then I'll start probing in multiple areas to figure out where I'm at throughout, because I don't want to lose all that liquid, but at the same time, I don't want to dilute it down too much. And so I did neglect to include one other wrap ingredient that I use. And a lot of guys make fun of me for this ingredient, but I still use it, and I've been really successful with it. I use maybe a quarter of a packet of Great Value brand from Walmart unsalted beef gravy mix.
There you go.
I mean, a lot of guys are using McCormick powdered gravy, but I like the unsalted. I really just like to be able to control the amount of salt I have on my brisket, and you can always tune it up on the board, but it's really hard to take salt out. But that little, I don't even feel like it's hardly enough to notice the flavor difference that's given you. But what it does is I think it helps thicken that that wrap liquid. So I've got it. And if you see some of the pics I sent you of the turn-in boxes, you can see a pretty thick sheen on some of those brisket slices. And a lot of times that's just straight wrap liquid. Not always. Sometimes I'll mix some sauce in it. I'll taste it, see where it's at, what I think, and mix a little sauce in, maybe a little maple syrup, butter reduction that I'll zap in the microwave or whatever, depending on where we're cooking and how I think the flavor profile is on the particular brisket that I'm turning in. But for the most part, that's already thick. As soon as that brisket's done and I pull it, put it in my Cambro, I vent it, put it in the Cambro. When I pull it out of the Cambro, my liquid's thick enough that it's staying on my slices.
I got you. All right. What is so there's recently, I mean, you were Team Cosmo. Didn't he have like some pre-made brisket wrap, some of the stuff? I mean, there's new, I see, for people like, say, newer people that are getting into the competition brisket scene, for some of these brisket wraps, like Bill Purvich just came out with a chicken, a brisket wrap. I think Cosmos had one, if I'm not mistaken, and there's been a couple other ones that you can, kind of pre-made ones. What's your opinion on stuff like that versus? I mean, usually most people's brisket wrap seems to be, it's your beef consomme and a couple other small things, but I mean, you're really just trying to pack in that beef. What is your kind of opinion on some of the prefab brisket wraps?
Well, to be clear, we were Team Cosmos. I didn't re-up with Team Cosmos. So anytime I'm pushing a Cosmos product, and any product for that matter that I've mentioned, I'm using it because I like it, not because anybody's pimping it. And I did for a lot of years use the Cosmos brisket wrap. And maybe, I don't know, maybe a sixth of a bottle in a single flat wrap. However, I was cooking at Coos Bay, Oregon last year, and I opened I had a brand new bottle of it just in my pantry, and I opened the screw top on it, and the seal on it had some mold on it, and it wasn't opened. It was just it had been opened, but not because I opened it. It was just moldy. And so I didn't feel like I could use that. And so I went around the comp, seeing if anybody had any. Nobody had any. And there was kind of a charity vending event the day before, and we made some teriyaki chicken bowls and vended those. And I had a little teriyaki sauce, some spicy teriyaki sauce. In fact, it's some stuff they sell at Costco now. It's I can't remember what it is. Let me look it up and I'll tell you. So what is that called? It's called Bakken's teriyaki sauce. Mm-hmm. Had some of that, and I just squirted a little of that in my brisket, and instead of that Cosmos wrap, just because I thought it. I don't know. I mean, because I've been using that Cosmos for a long time, and we got first place brisket and GC'd the comp, and so I used it in every brisket cook for the rest of the year. And I don't know that I don't use a whole lot of it, a couple of tablespoons. I don't know that it's significantly improving it or how much of it's superstition, but I haven't been using the Cosmos wrap for over a year now, and I don't necessarily miss it. It's really heavy on the Worcestershire sauce. That Cosmos wrap is. I don't really miss it. I think it's maybe a little more down the middle without it. So
I got you. That's fair. I mean, like I said, it's just something I've kind of seen on the market and stuff like that. So I was curious on your opinion of it.
That's the only pre-made one I've used. I haven't experimented with any of the others. I know I've seen a lot hitting the market. I've got to do a little lab time and start trying some more of these new products coming out.
Fair enough. All right, so we got it in your little steam foil. Are we probing it in the steam? Like, did you put a probe in at that point?
I don't.
No,
I just stick my Thermapen through the top when I think it's been long enough. I'm usually checking that after half hour, 45 minutes, because sometimes it's going to cook real fast, and sometimes I'm a lot higher temperature by the time I've got the color I want than other times, and so I'm going to probe it one time, half hour, 45 minutes, and then kind of judge how long it's going to be. If if it's real tight and I've got 175 degrees on my thermopan, I know I got to give it at least another half hour at minimum before I'm going to stick a probe in it again. But if it's starting to feel a little tender and I'm 195 degrees, now I'm going to start paying attention to it. And usually it doesn't happen that fast, but once in a while.
Yeah. All right. So we're pushing it. I mean, what's this whole process? Usually like 3 hours, 3-4 hours.
Yeah, I've had them cooking as fast as 3.5, and sometimes they take 4.5.
And you running 300 the whole time, or after you wrapped, you tone it down any?
I'm running 300 with that heat deflector in.
With the heat deflector, okay.
Yeah. In fact, I might even have it close to 315, 325 when I pop it on, and then let it settle down to 300. But then when it's in the wrap, it's got that heat deflector and it's going 300.
I got you. Okay, so we're getting to a point like it's been off for half an hour. At you said when you probe it, if it's like 190, 195, that's when you're really going to start kind of paying attention to it. So at that point, are you doing like every 15 minutes, just kind of probing it again, or what point do you really kind of buckle down? Like, all right, I'm going to baby this thing.
It's really just a feel thing. If I'm having to push that probe in pretty hard, I know even if it's at 195 or 200 or 205, I still got a ways to go. But if it's starting to feel like it's sliding in, then I'm really going to be, every 5 minutes maybe, or 10 minutes maybe.
Okay.
And it's a real fine line. And I think, I don't know many people who don't struggle with this, but I know I do. It's hard. It's a hard thing to get a nice, big, thick brisket tender in the middle without having the edges crumble. And so it's a fine line, man. And I think that it's a really hard thing to stay on top of. And I think guys who can cook every weekend have an advantage for sure here, but it's just a hard thing. I think that I think a lot of it's getting enough injection in the edges. A lot of it's, babying the edges enough while, they're with some spritz and some butter spray because they're starting to get darker. And a lot of it's your technique on the board. But I think that's really what matters most to me. I think first and foremost, this is a doneness competition. If you can cook that brisket right, so the middle passes the pull test real nice and it's velvety, but still has some tug, but the edges aren't falling apart, and you're 9/10 of the way there. Whatever flavors you're putting on it and finishing touches you're putting on it in the box, I think are secondary, in my opinion.
Yeah, especially with that nice Wagyu brisket. I mean, it's already got. I mean, by itself, it's got a bunch of great beefy flavors.
For sure.
But, I mean, as long as you don't salt bomb it at that point, I mean, you're probably in the ballpark if you nail that tenderness.
For sure.
Yeah. So, all right. So, got it. Obviously, you're going for a feel. At what temp? One pro team told me years ago, when it comes to Wagyu brisket, cook it till you think it's probe tender, and then cook it 30 minutes longer. What Wagyu can really take some heat, and you push it a lot farther, like you said earlier, than you do like a prime or something like that. What temp? I mean, obviously you're going by feel, but around what temp are you thinking about? This thing's pretty done. If you had to put a number on it.
I mean, definitely the high single digits in the 200s. I mean, if it's getting towards 208, 209, I'm getting there. But I've taken them definitely to the 2 teens, 216, 217. Not very often, but once in a while. And maybe that's good advice starting out, to take them a half hour past probe tender. But I don't know what probe tender means, man. And I think
that's the question.
Right. And so my definition of probe tender is, I think it's done when I feel like it's probe tender. And so I'll take it out. And I vent it for just a few minutes so it doesn't continue to cook too much, but then I'll seal it back up and throw it in my Cambro. And I know it's still continuing to improve the texture some, but I don't think it's drying it out any too much after I've let it vent for 15 minutes. But yeah, it's just hard for me to say what I think the right temp is, or and it just varies so much from brisket to brisket. Sometimes I'm shocked how low it is when it's done, and sometimes I'm shocked how far I have to take it. Right. And sometimes I misjudge it. And so
right.
that's a hard thing.
Right. So what'd you say in the ballpark range, anywhere from like say what 207 to 214?
Yeah, I think those are safe numbers. Maybe even a little lower sometimes, depending on where you're cooking. Maybe 205, 206 sometimes to 214, 215. I think is you're definitely. I mean, if you're cooking at home and you're pulling it off in that 210 area, and you're cooking over a or on a can. I mean, you're going to be pretty damn close.
Right. I mean, you're going to be riding that because, like I said, it is a tenderness game, and especially when you let it wait, let it rest, it's going to pull back some while it's in that wrap or while it's in the hold period. So if you push it a little too far, and you have enough time to let it pull back down, I think you'll still be fine.
For sure.
Yeah. Like you said, somebody says, that's the hardest thing about competition barbecue is pushing it to the borderline of 180 and mush and knowing where to stop.
Yep.
So that's the hardest thing to do in barbecue.
And one other thing that I'll say is I like to be at a point with all my meats where I'm enough ahead of the game that I can start getting them out of that Cambro and see where they're at. Because, I mean, it may cook a little more in the Cambro, but it's not going to cook for 3 hours in there. It's going to cook maybe a little more for the first half hour, 45 minutes. So where it's at, like an hour before turn-ins, is where it's going to be at turn-ins. So I'll get it out of there and maybe take a slice off of it and see where I'm at. That gives me an opportunity to get it back on the fire if I really have to. If I screwed this thing up, if I misjudged it, if it tightened up more than I thought it was going to, I got time to get it back on the fire and get it where it needs to be. And I think that's sometimes what separates teams who are more successful than others is knowing how to recover from your mistakes, because there's going to be those. I mean, everything cooks differently every time, and it's really hard to know, especially if you're not cooking every weekend when something's done. But if you're smart enough or experienced enough to know that how to right the ship when the ship's leaning over to one side is sometimes the way to make I mean, I've had times where I've sliced my brisket already and decided I think it's too tight, and I float it in some wrap liquid and get it back on the heat and finish it up, or something like that. Now, that's not ideal, but it sure beats the hell out of turning in something too tight and getting your ass kicked. So I think that I like to see, I like to do that. So I'll pull that out. I think, although I say it's a doneness competition, I think competitions are won and lost on the board for sure. You've got to make sure that meat's first and foremost done right. And there's a lot of room. I mean, whether you're slicing thinner or thicker, or you're putting it back on the heat, there's a lot of techniques you can use to compensate for or make it appear as though it's done perfectly, even if it's not maybe done perfectly. And then you've got to address the flavor profile issues on the board. I don't want my brisket to be so salty that I don't have to add anything. I feel like that's a miss. If it's so salty that I go, don't put anything on it, I think that's a miss. I think that I want to be able to fine tune it. I want it to be just under that. And then I'm going to take the salt to where I want it. And then I'm going to put a little sweet on it. And then I'm going to put a little more salt on it and kind of go back and forth on those until I don't think it can take anymore. That's what I think. So,
right. So when you take it off, like I said, it's pro tender. It's perfectly where you want it to be. You're going to leave it in that wrap and all the juices and all that jazz. Put it in a probably aluminum foil pan and stick it in your Cambro, correct?
Right.
All right. So you're going to leave it there. All right. So at what time in the ideal world are you pulling out your brisket and getting it ready for turn-ins?
I mean, in an ideal world, I'm getting my brisket sliced before pork turn-in.
Oh, you're slicing before pork turn-in?
Mm-hmm.
Really? So you're looking around one-ish, a little before one, and you're starting to slice your brisket up that soon. Okay, so you're taking it out and you're slicing it. Are you putting some jus down? Like, are you mixing sauce in with your jus? And like, what kind of sauces are you adding to your jus?
Yeah, I am. I do like to get it. I like to be one category ahead all the way through. So I want those ribs sliced and the way I want them, sitting in my Cambro, maybe on the heat, depending on the circumstances, before I turn in chicken. And I just like to be one whole game ahead, partly because I think pork is such a marathon boxing event. But I just like to be ahead of the game. It allows me a lot of opportunity to make adjustments if I need to. But yeah, so I'm getting that brisket out, and I'm going to run the drippings through a gravy separator because I want to get the grease out of them. So I run them through a gravy separator, fat separator, and then I'm going to run them through a strainer, a fine mesh strainer to get some of the chunks out. And then I'm going to taste it, see where we're at. And usually it's really salty and umami, and so I'm going to want a little sweet in that. And I go back and forth between the Eat Barbecue. What's his sauce name? I can't remember his brisket sauce. I really like Rod's stuff.
He's got some good stuff for sure.
What is it now? It's I can't get it to pull up. Anyway, his brisket sauce, whatever that is.
Okay.
I can't remember off the top of my head. I go back and forth between that and the Smoke on Wheels sauce. The which one is that? Why don't I remember all this? I'm not at home. Otherwise, I'd be looking at my barbecue shelf. But they've got no. It's not Smoke on Wheels. It's Smoke This. Smoke This is barbecue sauce.
Smoke
there.
This, yeah. Smoke
Yeah.
This. I got you. You talking about the IPO barbecue sauce?
Yeah, not IPO. The other one.
Okay.
His other sauce, and I use the smoky chipotle Smoke This.
Okay.
Some of those, depending on how I'm feeling the flavors coming out, I'm usually going with those. Or a lot of times, if I feel like it's too salty, then I'm going to go straight for a reduction of buttermilk syrup, and I'll hit that in my microwave until it starts to thicken. You got to be careful; it'll burn in a hurry. But I want it to just start to thicken a little bit, some of the moisture's out of it, and then I'll mix that in with my drippings, and I'll brush it on my slices.
I got you. All right, so we got that. You got it sliced up. You're tasting it. I mean, are you doing the bend test? You know, the over top of your finger, and you want it to be that. And are you pulling it apart? Like, do you do it from the corners, and then if you know the corners are right, then the farther end's going to be in.
Yeah, that's a hard thing because definitely as you move towards the middle of that brisket, it's less done than it is at the edges, and so so this is part of where your trim comes in handy, because if your trim is really uniform end to end, it allows you to skip some slices maybe in the middle that are underdone and move towards the other end, or vice versa. If you need to, you can pull a slice out that maybe you cut it a little too thick, and you can just skip that slice and tuck in the next one, and you won't even notice it. But if the trim isn't good, you can't get away with that. And so I think the trim's important. Yeah, I'm trying to go about pencil thickness, how about how everybody does. And you know, the thing is I like to the other reason I like to be able to pull one out of the middle is because that's where I want to try it. I mean, I can take one off the end and know it's done, or maybe it's a little past, but as I'm getting to the middle, I want to try one out of the middle. So I know what the judges are getting. Worst case scenario, how done is this, or how underdone is this in the middle? And then I can kind of work out from there. If the piece right out of the middle of my slices is underdone, then I move out a slice and start to, until I get to where I know it's done right, both ends of it. And then I try to get, at least 7 slices in there if I can, maybe 8 or 9 if I've got them and they look good, depending on how thick they are. I think I've got 7 in that box, maybe only 6,
7 at the top.
7 maybe. Yeah. And I think, I mean, if I can get them sequential and I know they're perfect and I can bend them over my finger and don't even have to eat them to know they're done right, awesome. But sometimes that's not the scenario you're faced with. And so that's that, and you can see how thick that sauce is on there.
I mean, you brushed it on there for sure. I've heard judges when it comes to brisket boxes that they don't want that pooling, kind of at the top. I mean, this one has a little bit of pooling on that second slice. You can see a little bit. I've heard some people like I said, I don't cook brisket on a day-to-day thing, so I'm not by any means not the expert, so I'm just scanning what people told me. But I mean, you definitely want to look moist. I mean, this brisket's, I mean, it's gorgeous. You got a beautiful smoke ring. It's thick slices. I mean, I feel, and plus your edges are so rounded. Every time I've done it, I've always had to dock the edges because, like I said, my edges are crumbling.
It's hard, man.
So I mean, docking the edges is something people would do if your edges aren't exactly like this is beautiful. That's like the ideal depth or thickness and the shape of a brisket slice. That just lets them know that he knows what he's doing and he did it right.
Well, and I'm gonna bet that pooling isn't quite that pooled by the time it gets over to turn in. I've closed the lid. Yeah, it's gonna look like that by the time it gets to turn in, I think.
No.
And
well, we're sitting here like staring at it, close up and all that. So yeah, I mean, obviously, I want to pick out any little thing, but judges, this is what a judge is going to see for all of 10 seconds, and I mean that's a absolutely stunning, beautiful box.
That picture's before it's been brushed, though. So that's going to be I sliced it, slid it in there, and took a picture.
Are you brushing each individual slice and then putting it in, or then you're kind of topping it off at the end, or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm playing with it in liquid. I mean, I'm slicing that thing probably during, just before pork turn in, because I've got my pork ready to just slip into the box. So I'm playing with that brisket just because I want to know if I got to put it back on the heat or something, which rarely happens, but occasionally. And so I've got that sliced. I've got it. Some rub put on it. It's brushed again. It's all in a stack, sitting in a little pan covered in foil, either out on my pellet grill or back in my Cambro, waiting. It's floating in liquid, essentially, ready to go in the pan. And so it's been doctored some, but I'm going to come back. The back side of this is going to have had a tiny bit of rub if it's not too salty at this point, sprinkled on the back, and it's going to have been brushed, and then I'm going to lay it all in. I'm going to come back and brush the top of it, maybe hit it with finishing rub.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I totally forgot that. What finishing rub are you going to use on your brisket?
So I don't use any commercial finishing rub. I just I kind of mix up a couple of my favorite rubs that I use on the brisket to where I want it. So I kind of I've got a couple of those thumb grinders, and I've got one that's got, say, my umami rub in it, bold and beefy, and it's going to grind it real fine. And if I don't feel like the brisket's salty enough, just a hair under, can take a little more salt at the last minute, I'll hit it with that. And then I'll have a sweeter rub, maybe not even necessarily my brisket rubs. It might be like a Cimarron Duck sweet or an Eat barbecue rub, his zero to hero is what I'll use. Okay. And I'll have that because I use that on my pork and my ribs. And if I feel like it's too salty, it needs some sweet, then I'm going to hit it with that one, just with my thumb grinder. And it's really fine. You don't notice it on there, but that's just the last minute. I'll take one slice out of that stack that I didn't put in the box, taste it before we send it, and figure out what it needs, if it needs anything.
Awesome. Well, man, like for me, the untrained eye, I mean, that looks like a 180 to me. I mean, I can't say a single negative thing about what I'm seeing right here. So we're turning it in. On your turn-ins, are you trying to shoot towards the beginning of the 125, or are you more towards the backside?
The only turn-in that matters to me is I try to get chicken done in as quick as I can. Otherwise, I'm just turning it in when I'm ready to turn it in. And sometimes
whenever that window is,
whenever I can get it over there, I'm usually pushing the envelope pretty hard because I mean I can see things on this that I'd get off of here, and maybe we did before I turned it in. But you can see up on that back top right slice, there's a little pepper flake. There's another couple here in the middle on this front slice. I mean, I've got a whole assortment of different. I buy this big Q-tip assortment from Harbor Freight. Sure. It's got a whole bunch of different ones, and I'm coming back in there, and then I'm credit carding the kale or parsley or whatever we're using on the sides to try to make it as straight and uniform as possible. And I've got tweezers and different paper towels and absorbent things that I'm tucking in here and trying to get any little, misplaced piece of whatever out of there. And so I'll take all the time I can. And it's nice to turn in a good hot product. So I try to have it all as doctored as I can before I lay it in there. But,
right.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter to me. I don't care. I don't play the game of whose table are we on or what time did it get turned in. I just want to turn it in when I've got it ready. And as soon as I can and get on to the next one if I can. So
fair enough, man. All right, man. Well, that's it.
Cool.
We kept taking you through the whole kit and caboodle from the beginning to the end, and you definitely had a lot of success. Man, I can't talk tonight. Success in the Elmer's kicking in. Success in the brisket world, and everything we showed you tonight. I mean, if you can get anywhere near that realm, definitely. Another thing I forgot, burn ends. I mean, 90% of cooks don't put burn ends because don't turn in stuff. I mean, if I feel like they're really good, and more in the Camp Missouri area for cooking in the Royal or something like that. I think it plays better there. But other than that, specific like Midwest region, I feel like burn ends hurt you more than they can help you. I mean, they got to be out of the park because some judges don't know what a good burn end is. You know what I mean? They're like, it's too fatty. I'm like, no, it's a freaking burn end. It's supposed to be.
I saw burn ends at Costco in their prepared meat section, I decided that we were probably at a point where we might consider putting burn ends back in, because I think that people know more what to expect. Yeah. I think with barbecue in general, it's homogenized across the country. There's less regional barbecue now than there ever has been. 10 years ago, it was more regional than it is now because of social media. So I think that, and YouTube really. And so I think that it's getting closer to a point in time where it might pay to put burn ends back in that box. I definitely think I've experienced some occasions where it's hurt me not putting burn ends in the box. But I'm still not cooking them, if that answers the question. But
like you said, do the KISS method, keep it simple, stupid, and just put in your best product you got. And if you have any doubts at all, don't.
Yeah, leave it out.
Let's just say that. So, but yeah, man. So that's our brisket. That's our brisket episode. Like I said, Matt, thank you so much for coming on the show and hanging out with me tonight.
Happy to do it.
All by my lonesome. I didn't get to talk to you last time. We had the A-team come in here and take over for me.
That's right.
But I had a great time talking to you. I definitely learned a whole bunch. And guys, if you guys have enjoyed this episode and have learned something from any of the previous weeks and including tonight, please make sure you like and subscribe and share this. Like I said, you pretty much got a free class this month. At least $750 I gifted to you guys, so if you could return the favor, yeah, for sure. Return the favor. Make sure you give us a follow, share with your friends, tell your mom, tell your dad, tell everybody about the Right on Cue podcast, because we want to bring you guys some quality product. And definitely tonight has definitely been that, to say the least. So, Matt, thank you so much, man. Best of luck with everything this year. Hopefully, if you make the jack, please let me know. And I'm going to come down and hang out with everybody. I said it's right down the road from me, so I'm hoping I get to see you and meet you in person, and we'll drink some bourbon together.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, buddy, man. Well, like I said, guys, that's our show tonight. Thank you so much. And as always, when it comes to barbecue, make sure you always stay right on cue. Later, guys.
That's all, folks.